The entry list for the biggest IMSA event of the year has arrived, as we prepare for an epic race at Daytona in 2025. The four categories of GTP, LMP2, GTD Pro, and GTD are each bringing over 12 cars, with an entry that's never raced before at this event, making its Daytona 24-hour debut in the coming venue. So in this video, I'll break down the full entry list that was officially revealed by IMSA for the upcoming 2025 Rolex 24 at Daytona. On Thursday, December 12th, the entry list for the upcoming season was officially released, and there is a lot of excitement around this year's grid for Daytona. The entry list consists of a 61-car field across the four classes, with 12 cars confirmed in the top category of GTP. But one of those entries will not be the brand new Aston Martin Valkyrie LMH, which is set to debut thanks to the Heart of Racing team in 2025. Earlier it was revealed that the new Aston Martin entry will not make its debut at Daytona, and instead will make its IMSA start at the next round at Sebring, just like what the SC63 did last season. This therefore means that the Aston Martin Valkyrie will make its competitive debut at the WEC season opener in Qatar. So first off, let's take a look at the GTP grid for the 63rd edition of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. As I mentioned before, the grid for this class consists of a record-breaking 12 cars, and first up on that entry list is the number 5 Mustang sampling Porsche 963 from Proton Competition. The German team will be back in GTP for 2025, and they have so far confirmed Jimmy Bruni and Neil Johnny as two of the racers for the black and gold Porsche, with the other two racers unconfirmed as of this date. Also on the grid will be the defending winners of the event, Porsche Penske Motorsport, as they bring both of the number 6 and number 7 cars to try and defend the winner's crown. The number 6 Porsche will be piloted by Mathieu Jaminet, Matt Campbell, and Kevin Estra, while champion from last season Felipe Nasr will be joined by Nick Tandy and Lawrence Vantor in the number 7 car. Now, as they return to Cadillac machinery for the first time since 2020, Wayne Taylor Racing will bring both of their new Cadillac V Series R entries for the first round, with the number 10 car being driven by Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, Will Stevens, and Brendan Hartley, while the number 40 car will be piloted by Ricky's brother Jordan Taylor, along with Louis Delatraz, Alex Lynn, and Toyota Gazoo Racing boss Kamui Kobayashi. Next up on the entry list are the number 24 and number 25 BMWs brought by Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. The lineups for the BMWs have been tweaked for this season, with Philippine and Dries Vantor joined by former F1 driver Kevin Magnussen, and these three drivers will also have GT superstar Raffaele Marciello for company. Meanwhile, the number 25 BMW will be driven by Marco Wittmann, Sheldon van der Linde, Robin Freintz, and Rene Rast. Moving on, and the number 31 Whelen Cadillac has also been added to the entry list, with the third V Series R mentioned being driven by full season racers Earl Bamber and Jack Aiken, and they'll be joined by Felipe Drugovich and Frederick Vesti. Former Rolex 24 Daytona winners Meyershank Racing will make their return to IMSA bringing 2 cars. Their number 60 Acura ARX-06 will have an extremely talented driver lineup, which includes Tom Blomqvist, Colin Braun, Scott Dixon, and Felix Rosenqvist. And interestingly, all 4 of these racers have driven in IndyCar before. Meanwhile, Meyershank's second entry, which is the number 93 Acura, will be driven by Renger van der Zande, Nick Yololi, recently crowned IndyCar champion Alex Palou, and finally Kakushin Ota. Meanwhile, Lamborghini will make their GTP debut with the SC63 at Daytona, as the Italian manufacturer actually never got to compete at the Rolex 24 in 2024, as they joined at the 12 Hours of Sebring event. For 2025, the number 63 car will be driven by recently crowned DTM champion Mirko Bortolotti, along with former F1 drivers Roman Grosjean and Danny Kvyat, and they will be joined by Formula E racer Eduardo Mortara. Finally, the GTP entry list is concluded by the final Porsche 963 on the grid, which is the number 85 JDC Miller Motorsports car. And so far, the lineup consists of Tijmen van der Helm and Bryce Aaron. Moving on to LMP2, and like in GTP, 12 cars will be on the grid for Daytona, and all of them will be using the Orca 07 chassis. First on this entry list is United Autosports, who once again bring 2 cars, badged as the number 2 and number 22, with drivers Ben Hanley, Daniel Goldberg, and Paul DiResta confirmed for driving duties. Returning to the Daytona grid in 2025 will be the 04 CrowdStrike Racing by APR entry, and George Kurtz, Malte Jakobsen, and Toby Sori are confirmed to be joined by IndyCar racer Colton Herta for this event. Tower Motorsports is back on the grid with the number 8 car, driven by WEC Cadillac driver Sebastian Bourdais, and he will be joined by John Ferrano, Job Van Aert, and Sebastian Alvarez. And also returning in the LMP2 class is TDS Racing with their number 11 car, driven by Stephen Thomas, Mikkel Jensen, Hunter McElrea, and finally Charles Malesi. Reigning Daytona winners in the P2 category, Era Motorsports, have also announced a comeback. The number 18 car will be driven by Tobias Lutka, Ryan Diel, David Hannemeyer Hansen, and finally WEC Alpine racer Paul-Louis Chaton. Polish team Inter-Europol competition are bringing a strong lineup of Tom Dillman, Bajoj Garg, John Field, and Antonio Felix da Costa to pilot their number 43 car during the Daytona event. And speaking of strong lineups, California-based squad PR1 Matheson Motorsports are bringing a talented driver lineup for the number 52 Orca entry, which consists of Ben Keating, Rodrigo Salas, Matthias Besch, and finally Benjamin Peterson. Moving on, and Pratt Miller Motorsports' brand new number 73 LMP2 entry will make its debut in IMSA here at Daytona, and the car will be driven by former Hertz Team Jota hypercar driver Callum Ilott, along with Chris Cumming, Pietro Fittipaldi, and James Rowe Jr. Meanwhile, a high-profile driver will make his return to the grid, as 11-time Formula One winner Felipe Massa will race in the number 74 Riley entry once again, alongside the likes of Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, and Josh Burton. The final 2 spots in LMP2 have been given to PCOM Racing and AO Racing. The AF Corsa Run Squad PCOM Racing will bring their number 88 car to the event, driven by Louis Paris Compact, Le Mans winner Nicolas Nielsen, and Mathieu Vaxivière, with the 4th driver unconfirmed as of this time. With AO Racing, meanwhile, confirming the return of the fan favorite number 99 Spike entry, and they have confirmed the lineup of PJ Hyatt, Dane Cameron, Johnny Edgar, and Christian Rasmussen as their 4 racers. So that's the prototype grid. Let's now move on to the GT Racing entries. In GTD Pro, there will be a record-breaking 15 cars on the grid. 2023 GTD champions Paul Miller Racing have confirmed 2 BMW entries for Daytona, which sees the return of the number 1 car and the debut of their brand new number 48 BMW. However, the driver lineups have not been confirmed as of this date. Next up on the list are the 2 factory Corvette entries from Pratt Miller Motorsports. Alongside their new LMP2 entry, the American squad will indeed return to GTD Pro for Daytona, and will once again bring a strong driver lineup for the number 3 and number 4 Corvettes, with the number 3 car driven by Antonio Garcia, Alexander Sims, and Daniel Huncadea, and the number 4 car driven by Tommy Milner, Nicky Katzberg, and Nico Veroni. The Heart of Racing team will make a one-off appearance in GTD Pro with the 007 Aston Martin Vantage, and even though the team has raced in the class for a long time, at Sebring they will make the step up to GTP with the new Valkyrie LMH. This Aston Martin will be piloted by the suspected Valkyrie LMH drivers, including Ross Gunn, Alex Riberas, and Roman DeAngelis, with Marco Sorensen joining the team as well. Pfaff Motorsports have entered their number 9 car for Daytona, but they won't be representing McLaren this time round, as the Canadian team has switched manufacturers again, and they are now running a Lamborghini Huracan GT3, with a driver lineup of Andrea Caldarelli, Jordan Pepper, Marco Mappelli, and James Hinchcliffe. Meanwhile, Vasser-Sullivan Lexus are back on the grid for Daytona, but the driver lineup for the number 14 car has not been confirmed as of yet. But the drivers have been revealed for the next car on this list, which is a surprising entry from Proton Competition, which is the number 20 Porsche. And the driver lineup for this Porsche will include Mercedes GTWEC drivers Claudio Schiavone and Matteo Cressoni, along with Richard Leitz and Tomas Preining. The factory Ford Mustangs from Multimatic Motorsports will be back, with a driver lineup consisting of Mike Rockenfeller, Sebastian Prio, and Ben Barker in the number 64 Ford, while the number 65 car will be driven by Christopher Mies, Frederick Vervich, and Dennis Olsen. Moving on, and making its debut in IMSA at Daytona will be the number 69 Mercedes from GetSpeed, and the team have confirmed Anthony Bertone, Fabian Schiller, and Luca Schultz as 3 of the 4 drivers for the AMG GT3. Also, it's worth pointing out that not one Mercedes, but 2 will be on the grid in GTD Pro, with the formerly known Sun Energy One racing team, now known as 75 Express, making their yearly trip to the iconic circuit, and the Australian team have so far confirmed 3 of their 4 drivers for their Mercedes, which includes Kenny Abul, Mikkel Gronet, and finally 4-time champion of Macau, Mauro Engel. Reigning GTD Pro champions AO Racing returned to Daytona with Rexy, and they bring a formidable driver lineup to try and challenge for victory once again. The number 77 Porsche will be driven by the most recent drivers champion Lauren Heinrich, who will race alongside Klaus Bachler and Alessio Piccarello. Dragon Speed's recent announcement of them moving to GTD Pro with their Ferrari sees them attend the Rolex 24 in 2025 in this class, with the entry list confirming that the number 81 car will have Albert Costa Balboa as one of the drivers in the 296 GT3. Finally, the last entry in GTD Pro will be an additional Corvette Z06 GT3R from the NASCAR team Trackhouse Racing as they join forces with TF Sport to run the number 91 Corvette at Daytona, with an awesome driver lineup, including Ben Keating, Connor Zilisch, Scott McLaughlin, and Shane Van Gisbergen. I also want to point out that the winners of this class last season at Daytona, Risi Competizione, will unfortunately not return for the 2025 edition of this race with their Ferrari 296 GT3, and so we will therefore get a new winner in the GTD Pro class. Finally, it's time to break down the last category on the entry list for Daytona, which is GTD, which will see 22 cars on the grid for the 2025 event. The entries for this class in GTD include the number 12 Vasser-Sullivan Lexus with an unnamed driver lineup as of yet, the number 13 AWA Corvette with Ore Fidani, Matt Bell, Lars Kern, and Marvin Kirchhoffer confirmed as the drivers in the Canadian team's entry. Van der Steur Racing will make their IMSA GTD debut with their number 19 Aston Martin at Daytona, with Rory van der Steur, Valentin Esclaw, and finally Maxime Robin confirmed to pilot the car. Then there is the first of the 7 Ferraris in the class for this event, as AF Corsa double up with 2 entries. The number 21 Ferrari will be driven by Simon Mann, Lilu Wadu, Le Mans winner Alessandro Pierguidi, and Kay Cozzolino. Meanwhile, AF Corsa have only confirmed Costagio Toledo as one of the 4 drivers for the number 50 car. As confirmed earlier with the full season entry list, Triarsi Competizione will also double up in GTD, bringing the 021 and 023 Ferraris. Out of the 2 cars, only the latter's lineup has been confirmed, as the 023 Ferrari will be piloted by Onofrio Triarsi, Charles Gardina, Alessio Rivera, and finally Riccardo Agostini. Meanwhile, Zachary Robichon, Tom Gamble, Mattia Drudy, and Casper Stevenson are confirmed to race in the second Heart of Racing entry, which is the number 27 GTD Aston Martin. The number 32 Mercedes will make a comeback to GTD for the classic 24-hour endurance race, and Korthoff Competition Motors have also confirmed their lineup for the AMG GT3, which includes Seth Lucas, Kenton Cook, Maximilian Gotz, and finally, Daniel Morad. While the number 34 Ferrari from Conquest Racing is also set to return, and it will be driven by Manny Franco, Cedric Sparrazawali, Giacomo Altoe, and the recently confirmed full-time driver Daniel Serra. Moving on, and a highly anticipated team making their IMSA WeatherTech debut at Daytona is DXDT Racing, and their number 36 Corvette will be on the grid, driven by Sal Ulich, Alec Udell, Charlie Eastwood, and two-time IMSA champion Pipo Derani. Next, there is the team of Magnus Racing, who will be on the grid at Daytona with their number 44 Aston Martin, driven by John Potter, Andy Lally, and Spencer Pumpelly, with the fourth driver unconfirmed as of this moment. And then there's the return of Wayne Taylor Racing to GT Daytona, as alongside their duties in GTP with 2 Cadillac entries, they are also competing in GTD again with the number 45 Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2. And the car will be driven by Danny Formel, Trent Hindman, Graham Doyle, and finally Kyle Marcelli. Another entry making an appearance at the Rolex 24 is the number 47 Cetilar Racing Ferrari, as this team returns to IMSA competition, and so far they've only confirmed one of their 4 drivers, and that is Roberto Lacorte. Moving on, and the winners of this class's race from last season, Windward Racing, will indeed return with their number 57 Mercedes to try and win again. The drivers will be Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, Indy Dontje, and finally Lucas Auer. Next up on the list is Gradient Racing's brand new Ford Mustang GT3, which will be the only car from the American manufacturer in the GT Daytona class. And this car will be making its IMSA competition debut at this track, following the team switch from Acura last season. The number 66 Ford doesn't have the full driver lineup revealed as of yet. However, we do know for a fact that Joey Hand will pilot the car at Daytona. Another car on this list that is racing at the Rolex 24 for the very first time is the number 70 Inception Racing Ferrari. The team, which recently switched from McLaren in IMSA, has already confirmed 3 of their 4 drivers for the event as well, which includes Brendan Arieb, Frederick Scandorf, and finally Ollie Milroy. Next up on the entry list is the number 78 Forte Racing Lamborghini, with Misha Goikberg set to race in the Huracan. And following the entry is the number 80 Lone Star Racing Mercedes, which, like the Forte car, already has a driver confirmed, and that is Dan Knox. Moving on, and a very exciting entry on the grid for this event is the number 83 Porsche from the Iron Dames, as the Italian team recently revealed their intentions to return to Porsche machinery in endurance racing competition in 2025. Sarah Bovey, Rahal Frey, Michelle Gadding, and Karen Gaillard have already been confirmed as the 4 racers to pilot the 911 at Daytona. The final 2 cars listed as entries for the Rolex 24 are from the teams of Turner Motorsport and Wright Motorsports. The number 96 Turner BMW is confirmed to return with a driver lineup of Patrick Gallagher, Robbie Foley, Jake Walker, and finally Jens Kleemann. And Wright Motorsports' number 120 Porsche is confirmed to have a driver lineup of Adam Adelson, Elliot Skier, Tom Sargent, and finally Einachan Guven. So that completes the breakdown of all 61 entries that are set to compete during IMSA's 2025 edition of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Which of these entries mentioned are you most excited to see compete at the famous American circuit for this 24-hour endurance race? Well, as always, feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like sports car endurance racing, this might be the channel for you. I'm making content on the WEC, IMSA, and so on every single week. In fact, there are some videos out on your screen all about these topics. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.